This tank is about to be removed from sale in World of Tanks console, and today's video is gonna showcase why this thing is just so devastating within the game and why you may want to pick it up if you don't already have it. But remember, this vehicle was released as part of an earn operation whereby you, or anyone that was playing during the time of its release, was able to pick it up for free. And I mean actually free. This tier 10 premium, which you can buy currently for free XP, was actually released for free. But remember, what they're trying to do with this latest kind of changes that they're doing to some of these vehicles is that they're kind of almost releasing them so that, or removing them from the premium tech tree, so you can't just go out and buy them whenever you want, and then they're going to make them more, well, rarer, I guess, is what they're attempting to do. And then once they've made them rarer, they'll probably then sell them for actual gold, because these are predominantly free XP vehicles that you can pick up, so you can convert your actual XP into free XP if you wanted to, or you can just buy these things by kind of saving up your free XP. But I think Wargaming are going to end up either selling them for like 30,000 gold or something ridiculous like that, or they'll end up just releasing them as kind of reward vehicles so that now nobody has to kind of go out and purchase them. But that's just my opinion, you know. You don't really know what Wargaming are going to do, and we can only really speculate. But regardless, we've been able in this game to pick up 800 damage straight away off the bat. And remember, this vehicle right here has 440 alpha damage over something that maybe we've seen with some of the other vehicles, which at tier 10, like the Chieftain or the Super Conqueror, have only 400 alpha damage. This one has an extra 40, and it also gets ridiculous penetration, 270 millimeters on its standard rounds, which means that literally, like, there is no reason why you'd ever really need to fire premium. There are some occasions, maybe when you want to pen an E100 through the turret, like if he's looking in that direction, then yes, you know, there are occasions, but they're very, very limited, and that means that you can earn a ton of money with this vehicle because you don't actually need premium rounds for like 90% of the time, and that's what makes this vehicle really, really nice, as well as the fact that when you're playing in this, you have kind of quite a chunky amount of damage that you can deal, so that you then end up coming out with some really, really nice damage results, because it only takes like 10 shells in the game, and when you're reloading in about 7 seconds, it's only like a minute and 10 seconds of solid firing to be able to do 4,000 damage. So it's really, really, I'm not going to say it's simple, but it's a tank that is definitely easy to grab hold of. There is not really anything unique or something that you really need to know before you go out and actually play this vehicle. It's just quite self-explanatory. It's just your typical heavy tank with a fantastic gun and very limited kind of requirements to actually play it and enjoy it. So that's kind of where I'm at with the T95 FE4201, and we'll be doing reviews of all of the top tier tanks, including things like the Object 279E and some of the tier 10 premiums that I own. I don't own them all, which is kind of annoying, so we can't review things like the 121B, I don't believe, but we can give it a go. Maybe I'll be able to pick one up at some point myself, and then we can do a full review. But the whole thing about this is that we're able to kind of push forward with this vehicle with the great armor model that it does have. Remember, this is basically a Chieftain but has less weak points and the better gun, and I believe it's slightly slower. That is pretty much the only thing that is worse about this over the standard Chieftain. And so yeah, you can get hold down with this thing. You can be a monster when it comes to just firing all of the time and dealing quite a lot of damage. And you can see here within this game, we're able to just kind of push up, and there's nothing really that a T54 can do to us unless he gets around the side. Trust me, there are points in games where people can out-traverse you in this thing. It's quite slow to turn. It's not particularly great at getting up to top speed, so there is that. when you do decide to play something like this. So don't think it's all sunshine and rainbows. There are some negatives to playing it, but in the right hands this vehicle is devastating, and it's like one of the easiest vehicles I think that I've played to like guarantee about 4,000 damage a game at tier 10, which is not like the highest amount of damage, but it's very, very consistent to the point where you can deal like 4,000 damage in almost every game that you play. Obviously that depends on skill level. You may be able to consistently deal 2,000, I don't know, it just depends on where you're at in terms of the game. I'm sure there's people in the game that will be able to average 6,000 damage in this vehicle, and yeah, it's just a very consistent vehicle. Compared to where you are at with your skill level. The higher skill that you're at, the higher like damage. It's not usually kind of weighted down by, I guess, kind of the game itself and not being able to get any more damage out. But that's something that I've always enjoyed about this T95 FE4201. And this is Sand River, so it's not particularly the easiest map to just kind of push forward. I mean, there are some avenues you can go down, but in general it's kind of a little bit of a pain. But there we go, we finish off the Kranvang there, and we come with a nice damage result, picking up 5,500 damage, I believe it was, at the end of this. 1,541 base experience, so not the biggest game, but it showcased one thing about the T95 Chieftain. Let's have a look at another game. Now this next game is a really kind of important one to showcase that this tank is not all about having the heavy tank mentality. There are some things that you can do yourself to kind of pull off some better games, and this replay is also going to showcase that even in these really, really short games, you can still have like really, really good games, and maybe not even by damage result, but just how much fun you can have when playing in this vehicle. And that's something that I think people always forget, is that sometimes it's not all about, you know, dealing 10,000 damage. Trust me, it's really fun when that happens, but it doesn't come around all that often. And so, to be honest with you, trying to stress about the fact that you didn't do 10,000 damage, or you didn't have, you know, like 8k damage in that one game, which means you're going down on your marks of excellence, is not the sort of gameplay I enjoy. Trust me, I can do that, but it's just not particularly the most enjoyable content. Why stress out about something that in the grand scheme of things literally doesn't matter within this game? So yeah, that's kind of my take on the whole really grinding it out. I fully respect people that are able to get 3 marks on stuff. You know, me personally, I've been able to get quite a few 3 marks on tier 10 and stuff like that, so obviously can do it. It's just a case of like a lot of the time it's now just time when deciding to go for a 3rd mark. Like I just don't have time to be able to grind out a tier 10 because it takes longer at tier 10 to be able to get 3 marks typically than something like a tier 6, and so yeah, if I can't even have time to do the tier 6s because I'm always playing different tanks so I can get reviews for you guys, yeah, it's kind of difficult. But you can see here just pinning down a KPZ on the enemy team, and he can really not really do a lot, and that's because this tank's alpha is just so nice, and the consistent damage you can kick out against the opponents mean that a lot of the heavy tanks you come up against, and we'll see one in just a second, just cannot deal with the level of kind of a damage output that you can deal. Now the IS-7 decides he's going to go, and unfortunately for him, he meets us in this central area. Now I'm not going to lie, we kind of mess up with that one shot there. I try and track the IS-7, which is a little bit of a pain. He then bounces off of us because we're kind of sloping ourselves on this little rock here. I'm then now deciding, you know what, I cannot afford to miss a shell here. I need to make sure that I'm hitting every single shell. He then decides he's going to come and try and ram us, but remember, this tank is not a slow one, and so he does literally the same amount of damage that we deal to him, and then we shut him down by going through the side of the track there. And then the FV215B183 on the enemy team then pushes out. We put a nice shell into the lower plate using the great accuracy of this vehicle, and then it's just a case of waiting and seeing what happens. And that's kind of the situations you can come into with this vehicle. I'm not saying that you will come out on top every single game when this sort of stuff happens, when people YOLO you, but it is a tank that kind of counters the YOLO meta that you see a lot of people kind of doing within World of Tanks console. So there's something to be said for a tank that can kind of counter the YOLO, and I always enjoy vehicles that are like this because it allows me to not have to rely on my teammates as much, and so we can get away with doing extra things, and also not just get YOLO'd by some people that may or may not recognise me. I have no idea at this point. There's loads of people that are content creators on all of the platforms on World of Tanks that say that people focus them. I don't think I've ever actually come across anyone that's particularly focused me in the game, or if they have, obviously it's not worked very well because I didn't even realise. But yeah, that's kind of something that I always have to think about when deciding to play a tank, and that's kind of what ruins my games. If I have like a terrible game, it's usually because either I wasn't paying attention to the minimap and I've just gone to somewhere that is just not particularly great, or that none of my team have also gone there, so I just get swamped, or there's just a YOLO wagon that decides they're just going to come around the corner regardless of whether it's worth it for them just to plough 1 or 2 or 3 rounds into me and take away 3/4 of the hit points. And that's usually the case in when your bottom tier game and a top tier decides he's going to just focus on the tier 8 or whatever it might be, and then it just comes around that corner. So that's kind of how I play it. You can see here loading a Hesh round. Anyway, back to this tank, and that's because these Hesh rounds get 120 pen, so they're actually quite nice, and they deal 560 alpha, I believe, which is a nice damage boost if you can pen things with 120. So medium tank stuff like that, you can pen really nicely. So not the highest damage result. I wasn't claiming that I had better games that I could have showcased, but the key thing about this one was that, you know, we got YOLO'd quite a few times actually, or at least had to deal with tanks one-on-one, and we still managed to come out on top and picked up a good damage result as well. So that is the T95 FE4201 Chieftain. In general, the overview of this vehicle is that it is a solid performer and an amazing tier 10 heavy tank that has it all really. It has armor, it has kind of mobility to a degree, it's also got flexibility, it's got gun depression, it's got loads of different things, everything that you really need. It's not exceptional to the point where it's like blatantly, disgustingly overpowered or anything like that, but it is very strong, and it is a better version than most of the tier 10 tech tree tanks from the British line. So there you go. Hopefully you did enjoy this video. Remember, we will be doing a review of some of the other premium tier 10 vehicles coming out very soon, including the Object 279E, so stay tuned for that. And don't forget, you can always check out some of the previous gameplay that will be coming out as well. And that should be on screen right now. And don't forget, if you're interested in learning the game or trying to get better potentially, then maybe you'd be interested in the How to Get Better at World of Tanks playlist, which covers loads of different mechanics and stuff like that. So yes, hopefully you did enjoy the video, and I hope you'll join me back in the next one. Goodbye.